Welcome to Keto Life Support, where we make your keto life sustainable, fun, and low stress. I'm Kim Howerton, and I'll be coming to you weekly with some of my keto besties to bring you the practical, real-world keto advice that you need. Quick disclaimer, I am not a doctor, and even if we do have a doctor in the house from time to time, he or she is not your doctor, and nothing we say on this show should be taken as medical advice. Always check in with a trusted medical professional about your own personal medical concerns.
Hey, yeah, it is Kim Howerton with Keto Life Support coming to you with episode 130. This is the second part of a two-parter. So I started last week with the Q&As from the Proper Human Diet Summit that I did in Nashville with Ken Berry and Nisha Salisbury. So go back and listen to that. I mean, you don't have to. You can listen to these out of order. The questions are individual, but I gave a little explanation of what was going on. But just to summarize, these are the Q&As from the Proper Human Diet Summit. You can watch the video and the talks that were given by going to Keto Chow's YouTube channel. And I will see you next week when we have another episode. Take care. Enjoy. Talk to you soon.
All right, now I want to welcome back all of the speakers again. So we have Dr. Berry, Nisha, Nurse Cindy, Kim Howerton. So this is round 2 of a Q&A. We have more questions that I'm excited to get to, and they'll be able to help you. Okay, the first one, Dr. B, can your pancreas increase production on the Proper Human Diet?
Yes. So the pancreas makes many things. The two things it makes that we're the most concerned with are insulin and glucagon, but it makes many other things. So yeah, is depending on what you eat, you're going to up or down regulate every hormone, both endocrine and exocrine, that it makes. Yes. You guys have probably all heard of fatty liver, but did you know you can also get fatty pancreas? And that a lot of the kind of leaders in the field of diabetology think that's the tipping point where you develop type 2 diabetes, is when you start to develop fatty pancreas. You can reverse fatty pancreas the exact same way you can reverse fatty liver. You can also reverse fatty tongue, not a joke, fatty heart, fatty lung, fatty kidney. If you eat enough carbs, enough sugar, enough grains, you can get fat inappropriately deposited in all those organs. But the pancreas is special because it makes insulin and glucagon, and when you get too much fat in there, you muck everything up, and then type 2 diabetes.
Before we get Autumn's next question, I've been told that the most popular question on the live stream is, where did Dr. Berry get his shoes?
Style icon over here.
Oh, and the socks. And the socks. So those shoes are from Nordstrom, and I don't even know what brand, but I will link them. You're welcome.
She is a true fashion icon.
My shoes are Dolce & Gabbana.
Sparkle.
Mine are Walmart.
Exactly. Payless. Yeah. Love that. Okay. Next question. Do you have to fast to have autophagy? And then there's a follow-up question, which I love. Will my bat wings go away? Realistic time frame. Thank you for the bullet points, whoever wrote this.
I can answer the first question briefly, which is no, fasting is not the only thing that induces autophagy. In fact, exercise induces autophagy on a shorter time frame. So you get more autophagy in a shorter amount of time than you would from a fast, but the body is always in some degree, unless it's in a highly fed state. But exercise is an incredible inducer of autophagy in the body. So much so that if you were exercising every day for an hour, you'd essentially be getting a similar amount of autophagy as if you were fasting for 3 days every week. So.
Yeah, some degree of autophagy, which is your body breaking down old, damaged, non-efficient cells, breaking them down, and using those basic building blocks to build new healthy cells. That's what autophagy is. Some of that's happening all the time. Now, if you just satiated on a dozen donuts, a 3-liter Pepsi, and 12 cheeseburgers, then maybe not much going on. The longer you don't eat, the higher the rate of autophagy goes up. Or if you work out, your rate of autophagy goes up because you do damage when you exercise. So you have to replace those cells, right? What about if you worked out fasting? There's a thought. Yeah, they're additive. Weird. Yeah. And so remember that proper human life? You eat your fatty meat, then you don't eat again for a long damn time, and you go outside and play while you're not eating. All of a sudden, things just start to multiply. It's almost exponential. It's really cool.
I love all these math terms, by the way.
So relative or realistic timeline for your bat wings. Yeah. Anybody want to own that question? Who is it? So months to years. If you've got bat wings and you want them gone now, go see your plastic surgeon.
Wow.
Honestly. But there are many people in this sphere who thought, man, I'm going to have skin reduction surgery 100%. There ain't no way this shit's ever going away. And now after a year, 2, 3, they're like, where did that all go? That's autophagy, okay? Now that may not work for you on your time frame. I don't know when you want to get into that bikini. So you may have to see your plastic surgeon, but if you have patience and you can take a picture in your underwear every 3 to 6 months and then watch the progression, you might be shocked at how much that skin tightens up over the coming months and years.
And it'll also tighten up if you put some muscle on that too. So do some tricep work, fill that out, right? So yes, that's excellent. Thank you so much. This next question is for Nisha, and there are 2 questions together that I think go well. So you were talking about in your talk, like the carnivore elimination and then beginning to reintroduce things. So the first question is, should you go back to strict carnivore or BBBE between reintroducing food? So say you've eliminated and then you want to add in dairy for a week. Should you go back to doing that before you attempt something else, or do you stack them on top of each other? And then the follow-up is, how do you know you are negatively reacting to a food? What are some symptoms?
Okay, so the first part, I will say, for dairy, I would introduce the dairy, go a week back to triple B and E or carnivore, and then for every other food, if you like Brussels sprouts or whatever, do a day where you eat some Brussels sprouts, and then 2 days back to carnivore, triple B and E, and then depends on your patience. How much patience do you have to give yourself? And remember that this is not a marathon. Or no, it is a marathon. It's not a sprint. And so keep that in mind when you're like, I just want to know. It's much better if you have the patience to reintroduce one food and then again cleanse your gut so that it is clear that you are getting whatever reaction you're getting from that specific food and not the one that you ate 2 days ago, but especially with dairy. And then the second one is, what do I look for? So in my slides, I was going a little fast apparently. There's a list, but you can go find that in the Patreon community. In the next few weeks, I'll upload it. But really, it's anything that is out of the ordinary for you. Do you normally have a severe headache all day? If not, that's probably from something that you ate, maybe a sweetener. Like, don't forget about sweeteners. That's considered a food introduction. You took those out during the carnivore elimination diet. So if you're bringing it back into your coffee, pay attention. Did you get a headache? So that's one of the most common things I hear, gut issues and headaches. So it's just anything that doesn't make you feel good that is quite obviously interfering with your day. Skin rashes, a big cystic acne, diarrhea, those type of things that you're not enjoying. That's what you're going to look for. But I mean, literally, it's thousands of things.
Another question, and I think we talked about this, but let's reiterate. If you're strict carnivore, do you need to monitor your blood glucose or ketones, or why would you want to if you don't need to? And then, do I need a CGM?
No, and no. If you are carnivore, the whole point is it is simple, and you shouldn't be worrying about anything unless you're a type 1 diabetic then yes, work with your doctor because you have to take exogenous insulin. But other than that, just enjoy your fatty meats. Do not chase ketones. Even if you are keto, do not chase ketones. We are not worried about that number. We love BioCoach, but even they will tell you that it's not about that. It's about consistent, real quality foods and feeling good and being a fat burner. Do you agree?
Also, I want to say that one of the things that I see, and Dr. Berry and I have this in the book a little bit, but I see in the keto and carnivore community is people like testing their blood glucose or wearing a CGM, and they're being like, it was 87 and then it went to 89. And I'm pretty sure that means something. And, the data you get from a tool is only as useful as the accuracy of that tool. And many of us on keto or carnivore have such stable blood sugars. Like it goes up and down 10 points. My blood sugar goes up 15 points when I take a hot shower, right? So it's not, you don't overestimate, don't create meaning where you can't. Like don't chase very small numbers when you're monitoring these things. You want to know trends, but not little things. Because you're literally living in blood sugar fantasy land when you think the meter isn't accurate enough to tell the difference between these two numbers that you're trying to make meaning out of. I mean, if you're really bored and your life is horrendously boring and you need drama, that's about it.
Thank you. Next question. When should you use electrolytes?
So, more than 15,000 years ago, where did our ancestors get their electrolytes? What did they drink?
Liver.
They did not drink coffee. They did not drink tea. They did not drink wine. What did they drink? 100%. River water, ocean water if they had to, stream water, mud puddle water, 100%. Guess what those are all rich in? Minerals and electrolytes. Also, they will give you the fatal shits these days, so don't try that. But in the past, their gut bacteria was cast iron.
Yep.
They could tolerate that, no problem.
Yep.
Just like your dog. When your dog goes out and you're like, no, Fido, don't leak, Fido don't give a damn. Fido can drink out of the toilet. It'll be fine. Okay? Because of their protective gut bacteria and their acidic stomach. That's where we got it from. Also, when you kill a 5,000-pound megafauna back then, now we've got a car winch. We lift it up. We drain it, right? In the slaughterhouse, that's the first thing is we drain the blood. Could they do that? No. They ate the meat bloody. Guess what blood is a rich source of? That's how we measure your magnesium and potassium and sodium and chloride, right? Is we check it in your blood because your blood's full of it. So they didn't have to worry about that. Now, these days, eating foods that are in many cases nutrient depleted from soil that in many cases has been misfarmed and mismanaged for decades, if not hundreds of years, depending on where you live in the world, we now have to worry about minerals and electrolytes. Hopefully, if I have my way, we won't have to do that forever. 20 years, 30 years, 50 years from now, when Beckett's in charge, the soil will be full of minerals, and the minerals will be unlocked. And anytime you eat a vegetable that grew there or a cow that grazed there, that's it. You literally won't need to supplement anything. But right now, out of an abundance of caution and precaution, you probably need to mind your minerals and get some daily electrolytes as we all work together to rebuild the soil and heal our earth from the damage done by the huge corporations.
Yeah.
Right?
Regenerative.
That's right. Regenerative. Yeah.
Okay.
It's broken. That's okay. We can fix it. We can fix it. If Monsanto starts wanting to fix it, that makes me nervous. I don't like that. Okay. We got this. We don't need them.
Thank you. Next question. Will the dawn phenomenon go away? Like, is it something you can make go away?
No. The dawn phenomenon, it happens in every mammal on the planet. It happens in your dog and your cat. It happens in literally every mammal on the planet. When they are waking up from sleep, their cortisol and their epinephrine elevates, and that causes their blood sugar to elevate. This is not unique to humans. This is not unique to diabetics. You'll hear people who are supposed to know what the hell they're talking about, say things like that. People with PhDs and MDs will say things like that. No, it's not true. Every mammal on the planet has the dawn phenomenon. Now, it's more pronounced in some people than in other people. If you have metabolic syndrome or type 2 diabetes, yours is going to go up 5, 10, 20 times as much as somebody who doesn't. But it happens in every human on the planet, and indeed every mammal on the planet. The tiniest shrew that Shakespeare ever wrote about had the dawn phenomenon.
Thank you. Sciencey question, Dr. B. What does it mean if your C-peptide goes from 6 to 1.18 unmedicated?
Means you got a lot damn metabolically healthier.
Yep.
That's what that means, right there.
Congratulations,
So
whoever did that.
let's just talk about C-peptide for a second. I've got this lecture on YouTube somewhere, maybe low carb San Diego, maybe they have it. So C-peptide, when your pancreas is making insulin, it actually makes proinsulin. And then the C-peptide breaks away from the proinsulin, and then you make insulin. So for every molecule of insulin that your pancreas makes, you also make a molecule of C-peptide. It's 1-to-1 ratio. So if you check C-peptide, that is an excellent proxy marker for how much insulin you're making.
Yep.
Now, if you're currently a type 2 diabetic who injects insulin, or you're a type 1 diabetic who injects insulin, you can't check a fasting insulin because the exogenous insulin is going to affect that. But you can still check a C-peptide. And so many type 2 diabetics injecting hundreds of units of insulin, you'll check their C-peptide, which is not affected by that insulin, and it's 20. So not only are they injecting hundreds of units, but their pancreas is overproducing insulin. So they're hyper insulinemic because of the high carbohydrate diet that the American Diabetes Association recommended to them. Okay? So that's why C-peptide is a big deal.
This question is for Kim. How do you keep your primary goal in mind when you lose weight?
How do you keep your primary
I don't know
goal?
if it's like while you're trying to lose weight or after you've lost the weight.
Okay, so I think I would first say my primary goal is sanity, right? Like, it doesn't really matter what pant size I wear if I am hating my life. And one of the things I didn't share, but I will, is I started having bouts of severe clinical depression in the 3rd grade. And I suffered pretty hardcore with serious depression most of my life. And on my journey, there have been times where I had to prioritize my mental health over my dietary, like over my size goals. At the end of the day, I think we have to know what is most important in our lives. And for me, my number one thing is if I wish that I was dead, nothing else really matters. And so there were times when I ate in a way where I made that my primary goal. I think one of the things that's really important to know is the word prioritize means that some things are more important to you than others at times. And I think it's okay for your priorities to shift. We don't owe weight loss to anyone, right? If you are a happier, mentally healthier person in a slightly bigger body because when you eat a certain way, even though it isn't optimal for your pant size, it is optimal for your brain health, then that's what you do. It's very strange, I know, coming from a weight loss coach, but what you weigh isn't the most important thing about you.
Shocking.
Right?
Shocking.
I mean, if what you weigh is the most interesting thing about you, then you need more hobbies as well. But I will say, I'm just inventing the answer because I was a little unclear on the question, but I think you have to know what's important to you and know you get to choose what's important to you. And if what you weigh is very important to you, then you're going to have to make choices that prioritize that, but never lose sight of the fact that it might not be always your number one priority. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Great answer. Yeah. I love it. So this next one is for the panel, something I'd like all of you to answer because it's personal, and I would personally like to hear your thoughts on it. What is the hardest truth you've had to face during your journey? I'd like to hear from each of you.
Just you're a doctor don't mean you know shit. That occurred to me several years back when I had went from this lean, bony, young 20-something medical student who could literally live on Doritos and donuts and Mountain Dew. Literally live on that for months and still have a six-pack and weigh 195 pounds. So all of a sudden, being a fat, miserable, morbidly obese, pre-diabetic young doctor in practice, I had to face that epiphany. Dude, you do not know shit about human nutrition. You need to shut the hell up giving anybody any nutrition advice until you figure out, first of all, how to fix your own self and why that worked. And then maybe you can start giving some advice to other people. But currently, you just need to write your little pills and shut the hell up about, oh, you need to join Weight Watchers. Because obviously, look at your fat ass. You don't know what you're talking about.
That is a harsh truth.
Probably that I had to start and just start, right? Like the hardest thing was you can't get it right before you start because there is no right. You have to find your path. And so it's like, you got to jump and you got to build your wings on the way down, because if you wait until you're ready and you wait until you know everything, you're just going to die like before you get there, because you're going to be, 102 because you're still researching and you have no idea. You just got to do it. If you doing it wrong, better than not doing it at all.
Sure.
Yeah. Good.
This is a really good question. It made me really have to think. The hardest truth that I have had to face with this journey is...
That's funny. That was funny.
Well...
You're going to pay for that. You're going to pay for that.
That is true. However... Are you done?
Probably not.
So the hardest truth for me is that I, along this journey, realized that the calling I thought I had, which was nursing, didn't support the calling that I had, which was to help people.
Yeah.
And it took me several years to get over that. I'm still not over it because I love being a nurse and I love my fellow nurses, but healthcare system doesn't allow us to take care of people the way that we should be able to take care of people.
So I have two, and they're sort of combined. I mentioned to you in my talk that my daughter Rachel, who some of you used to follow, she's not on social media much anymore, is type 1 diabetic from the age of 3. She's 40 years old now. And 6 years ago when I started my keto journey and I realized that I had fed her things that were harming her because I didn't know what I didn't know. It's still hard. She's doing well. I mean, you would think after 37 years, most type 1s are in renal dialysis and they've got bad retinopathy, and she's doing really well. And my second regret is that it took me 59 years to figure it out for me. But my biggest regret is what I did to Rachel by not knowing.
That is a beautiful testimony. And how many of us in this room have experienced something similar? Like, if only I would have known before, I could have saved my parent, my grandparent. If only we would have known, we could have helped them with this information. And so that is such a powerful story. And that's why it is our job. It's our mission to help people by either living, just by being that living story, or helping them whenever they want that information and just being there to support them. But a lot of people in this community have that same story. If only I had known before, because the sad part about it is you are listening to the doctors. You're listening to the American Diabetes Association. You're giving them the oatmeal, you're in the insulin. Like, you're doing what you think is best. You're doing what the doctor tells you, and they just get worse and worse and worse and worse, and they pass away. And so we think, if only we would have known better, we could have done better in the beginning. So that's a powerful story. Thank you, Nurse Cindy. do I help my daughter who has PCOS and doesn't like meat? She is 19 years old.
Does your daughter know she wants help? Is the first question.
Does she want help? Is she ready for help? Will she hear it from you? These are all very important questions. The answer to any one of which may be nope. In which case, how old is she?
19.
19. Yeah.
You know what that means? She's a grown-ass woman.
Yeah.
So you can help, you can suggest, you can diplomatically, lovingly leave things lying around, but you cannot make her do anything. So what I would recommend first and foremost is to completely transform your health so that you're the healthiest you've been since she's been alive.
Yeah.
And most people are genuinely interested in that. You might share a YouTube video by a doctor about PCOS. A lot of times they don't want to hear it from their mom or dad or from their children if it's the flip. But if you're like, there's this doctor on YouTube and he said that something about PCOS and the food, I don't know, you should just check it out. Here's a link. I don't know. It's probably bullshit. Who knows? Check it out. A lot of times people will hear things from a next door neighbor or from a friend up the road or from an uncle or aunt because that person ain't you. And they'll hear it from that person. So sometimes we have to be very diplomatic and almost ninja-like and not, no matter how fervent and heartfelt your message is, it may fall on deaf ears 100% of the time with that person. I don't know. Only you know the answer to that. So if they're not ready, it's not time. When they're ready, it is time to hear it from the right messenger, which may or may not be you. And then the right message, which is to eat a proper human diet, which can substantially lessen the hyperinsulinemia that goes along with PCOS and mucks up all the other hormones.
The other thing would be, what type of protein will she enjoy? Does she like bacon and eggs? Can you make her a protein pudding? Would she drink a keto chow shake or turn that into an ice cream? Anything that would increase her protein intake will many times just by default twist that desire to eat a lot of carbs. So that's another option that you would look into, what she would actually eat this protein versus a big old ribeye. So you start small.
I think you can eat low carb enough even on a vegetarian diet.
Yep.
If you include seafood and eggs and some butter, some cheese maybe, you can eat low carb enough to improve the symptoms of PCOS. Now on a vegan diet, I keep asking on Twitter, they're like, yes, you can. I'm like, well, give me a day of eating. What would a vegan day of eating be that would be low carb? And I either get blocked or told to go F myself. And I asked for a day of eating, some examples, some meal examples. What does low carb vegan look like? And I can't get anybody to answer me. But on a vegetarian diet, ovo-lacto-pescatarian, 100% you can eat high fat and high protein enough to, by definition, lower your carbohydrate intake, which is the culprit.
Yeah.
Thank you. This next question seems rather straightforward, but I want to take a deeper, thought into it. Is what do you do on BBBE if you're allergic to eggs? I really think the question is there some optimal balance of all these things, or do you have to have all of them in order to make this way of eating work? Like, what is the approach to BBBE?
So BBBE is easy to remember. It's catchy. Also a good song, right?
Exactly.
That was so great. That was great.
But it's roughly a 1-to-1 fat to protein, 1-to-1, 2-to-1 fat to protein ratio, which is the most satiating and the most beneficial for most people. So if you don't like eggs, it's totally fine. Just eat fatty cuts of beef and butter and bacon. Yep. And you'll be fine. There's fine. Now, eggs are very nutrient dense. If you react to eggs, I would try duck eggs or goose eggs or quail eggs. I would also try to exclude the whites of the egg and just eat the yolk. Yolk also is a great source of protein. A lot of people don't know that. Mm-hmm. That's whites, and see if you still react. Because for many people, it is the grocery store egg whites that they're reacting to because the chickens are so ill-fed.
Yeah, instead of triple B and E, it could be triple B and me. Just drop the E.
Sure.
Would you consider fish roe to fit in the eggs category? Well, there you go. Any egg. All the eggs.
Okay, and then what about, beef, butter, bacon, but like what about pork chops and all sorts of other things that aren't just bacon?
So back to the 1-to-1, 2-to-1 fat to protein. Pork chops are super lean. Remember when they used to advertise
The other white-
the other white meat?
We all know.
Ain't nobody needs any white meat. Okay? We need fatty meat. And so bacon is about roughly 1-to-1 fat to protein. Right? A good ribeye is 1-to-1, a little more fat to protein. That's what we're looking for here. The more fat you can get for most of us, that's better. If you can get 2-to-1, that's a little better for many of us. Maybe not all, but for many of us it is. And so hog jowl and pork belly are fine. They are gifts from the Creator above. Okay?
Yeah.
They're roughly 1-to-1 or 2-to-1 fat to protein. But pork chops, come on.
What
You
do put
know,
egg, butter on them?
you pretended to like that pork chop,
If you really
but you'd rather have bacon, you know.
Okay.
So this is a follow-up question, and I've asked you this before, but I'd love to hear you explain it again for those of us that actually enjoy lean protein. I'm sorry, it's my keto, shame. My question was, well, is chicken breasts and butter the same as ribeye? Like, what is the benefit of having them naturally occur together like that?
Yeah. So, no,
You told me that I was sad, so yeah.
because chicken, especially improperly raised chicken, is not nearly as nutrient dense as ruminant animal meat. The multi-chamber stomach that Cindy talked about, the trillions of bacteria in their gastrointestinal system literally is magic right now.
Yeah.
What it does to the food that you feed them, because the definition of magic is technology that we cannot explain. So if you went back 15,000 years with a flashlight, your ass would be the witch doctor for the whole tribe, because they couldn't explain that. So we do not know everything that happens in the gastric rumen. We do not know. We're still discovering that stuff. But so it's currently magic, literally. But they are able to turn grass and other grains and stuff into the most nutrient-dense, uninflammatory meat on the planet. And many people on a carnivore diet, if they eat too much chicken, they can feel the inflammation. They can tell, I should not have eaten that. Okay, same with pork. But if you can eat chicken and put some butter on it, please, and you seem to do fine with that and you're making progress, do so. It's fine. It flies. It's on the carnivore diet.
It flew. It flew.
At one point.
It tried to fly. It dreamed of flying. It thought it could fly. It bragged about flying if it was a rooster.
It flapped.
Hell yeah, I can fly.
Kim, this next question is for you. How do you feel about the protein-sparing modified fast to break a stall?
Hello.
How do you really feel?
I appreciate that. Okay, so if you guys don't know, the protein-sparing modified fast is actually originated a long time ago. It was in the 80s, I believe, the Last Chance diet, and it was a diet that a doctor put out that was very, very low in everything but protein. And the idea was, I don't know if it was like last chance at life or like last chance before gastric bypass. It's unclear what he meant by it. But the unfortunate part is he created a product for it, which was a liquid shake, but he was cheap. And so the shake was collagen protein. And some folks died because collagen protein is an incomplete protein. And if all you feed people are incomplete protein, they don't have what they need to live on. And also it was deficient in electrolytes as well. So I'm not suggesting that the protein-sparing modified fast is deadly at all. I like the history. It came back into prominence in the 90s as like a more of a bodybuilder kind of thing to do. And then it's been brought into the keto community more recently through the Emmerichs, which is awesome as a tool for people. Protein-sparing modified fast, if you don't know what it is, the way it's often suggested it to be used these days is that you might eat a normal sort of average keto diet most days and interject a few protein-sparing modified fast days within your week. And through that, some people find that they are able to average out a lower fat intake over the course of a week. Other people are using it as a continuous diet. So you go on the protein sparing modified fast and you do it every day. I'm not opposed in any way to using it as a tool that you interject in your life, because maybe there might be a certain day you're planning a very, very high fat day and you want to balance it with a lower fat day, and you want to balance that out because you know there's a certain ratio that works better for you, and you kind of average that over the week. I think when people do the protein sparing modified fast, traditionally this is going to be around 800 calories a day. I think doing that for very long I'm just going to say is a bad idea. I think that under eating or crash dieting, I mean, the people who popularized it called it a crash diet. So if you're taking it on, I think long-term as a lifestyle, I think you're gonna be nutrient deficient. You're gonna be doing a lot of suppression of hormones. And you're also, I think, treating your body in a way that I find a little bit disrespectful to your own body. However, using it as a tool in the toolbox, I'm not against. Just like anything else, it can be used well or misused. I personally find people have better success when they might average out their days rather. There's nothing magical about 3 days of this and 2 days of this and 1 day of that, and it's like trying to time the stock market. It's like you're more often than not you're going to end up screwed. But for some people, it works. But I think just like with lots of things that we give names to, we start to say that might be magic when it's just an averaging out of your macros over the week. So myself, I prefer to average out my macros over the week rather than like 1 day of 30 grams of fat and another day of 100 grams of fat. I'm like, maybe I want to do 70, right? So just like anything else, it's a tool, and it can be abused. And, if you fast for a long time, you'll lose a lot of weight, but then you have to come back from that. And it's another version of that.
You said for a stall, right? In your opinion, because she works with this a lot, what would you say works best for a stall?
I think to fix a stall, you got to know why you stalled. And generally speaking, it is true that eating less is going to cause more weight loss than eating more. However, like sharpening the saw in my analogy on my talk, if you eat continually less and less and less, and it's like, oh, I lost the weight fasting for 3 days a week, so now I'm stalled, so I'm going to fast for 5 days a week. It's just diminishing returns. And again, you're treating your body disrespectfully. So if the stall comes on the back end of you crash dieting regularly and pushing your body too hard, at a certain point you have to say, I got to stop this madness. I've got to learn to be really nourished, and I've got to take my foot off the accelerator of fat loss for a while and let myself heal a little bit. Let myself get nourished. Let myself eat a normal amount of calories for an adult human rather than a toddler. And then when your body is ready, you can go into another period of fat loss. I think a lot of us act like there's a timeline to get this accomplished. There is no gold stars being given out. I've looked around. Yes, you sound impressive when you tell the story, but ultimately, I want you to be happy and healthy and not, it's not a race. Take your time, get it done right. Don't get it done fast.
Wow. Dr. Berry,
Sure.
would you make sure the audience understands your basal metabolic rate and why we don't want to be lower than that? Because you'll start to chew yourself up.
So you have a basal metabolic rate, which accounts for respiration, digestion, heartbeat, every single thing that your body uses energy for. We can roughly calculate that with a plus or minus 10% error rate. It depends on if you're lying flat, if you're sitting up, if you're standing, running, having sex. Anything you do, any activity is going to change that number, but we can roughly guesstimate that number. Now, if you're chronically under-eating, your body, remember we said earlier, it's not an idiot. So when your body sees that we're chronically under-eating, it's going to be like, I need to ramp some stuff down here.
Yeah.
We're going to slow the respiratory rate. We're going to slow the heart rate a little bit. We're going to slow down the thyroid hormone a little bit. We're just going to basically put the body in low or even double low until the food situation picks back up. And so most people who are wanting to lose fat, because that's what we mean when we say lose weight, they're wanting to rev up their metabolism. And eating less food does not do that, ever, unless you're smoking crack also. which you don't want to do. So that's why I love Kim's concept of give your body a break. So let's go into this a little more. 15,000 years ago, if you ate 800 calories a day for a week, what did that tell your body was going on?
Famine.
15,000 years ago. Famine. Either you fell in a hole and broke your ankle and can't get out, or there's a famine, or you're sick. Something bad is, if you're losing weight like that, nothing good happens. Your body is not happy about that. That's bad. You're going to die. So your body's going to do everything it can to crank down your metabolism, slow everything down, hoping that ankle heals, you can get out of the hole, hoping that you make a kill, hoping that the crop comes in, hoping something so you don't die. So that's what you're mimicking when you're doing this chronic calorie restriction, semi-starvation diet model. You're effectively telling this ancient metabolism you're carrying around with you, there's a famine. And so your body's going to slow your metabolic rate, which is the exact opposite of what you want to be happening if you're trying to burn more fat. Also, anytime you're losing weight in the past, that's uniformly bad, 100% of the time. There's never a time 15,000 years ago when your body went, boom, we lost some weight. Never. So it makes perfect sense that you would have weight loss pauses, stalls, right? All those things make sense in the light of that evolutionary lens.
Yes.
Because your body's freaked out when you're burning fat really fast. That's never good from where your body came from. Only in modern society where everybody's fat and sick is it a good thing that you're burning more fat than you're storing. Does that make sense? So when you have a weight loss stall, that's actually your body putting on the brakes going, whoa, what the hell? What's going on here? It doesn't mean you're a failure. It doesn't mean you're doing anything wrong. It just means your body needs a minute, and then also you reassure your body with a nutrient-dense diet.
And you don't just lose fat.
Yeah.
If you're way under your resting metabolic rate, what do they take off?
Yeah, you're also losing connective tissue, you're losing muscle, you're losing bone density, and guess what? That shows up on the scale. Ooh, I lost 7 pounds. Booyah. Well, 3 pounds of that was bone. You still happy?
Yeah, or muscle, which is your...
Oh, you lost 2 pounds of muscle. You happy about that?
No.
Ain't nobody happy about that. So remember, the scale measures everything.
Yeah.
If you fast for long enough, you'll actually lose weight in your liver and your brain. You don't want that. You want to burn fat. And in order to do that, you've got to reassure your body with nutrient density and eating enough total nutrition, and then be patient, give your body time to do what it needs to do to heal.
And just to close out this point, Kim, since you see this a lot, what classifies a true weight loss stall? Because for people that maybe weigh themselves every day, they might weigh the same for 4 days in a row. I'm at a stall. Like, what is a true stall?
I mean, just like anything, the definition was invented, so it kind of depends who you ask. But I really don't look at a stall as a stall for about 8 to 12 weeks, like 3 months-ish. And that's not losing inches or pounds. I will say, I do tell people, like, at about 6 weeks, give yourself a little bit of a audit. Like, do I think I'm doing things that I'm not actually doing? Yeah. Like, sometimes I'll be like, yeah, totally. Like, has anybody ever used a food scale, weighed out the food very meticulously, and realized there was a little too much, so you ate it? Nobody? Just me? That's not how this works. So you're like, let me check on that kind of activity, right?
And you're not allowed to pick up the scales and move them to a different part of the floor or shake them.
Right. I have a towel bar right above where my scale is, and if I just hang on to it a little bit.
Lean on the wall.
Yeah. So, first do an audit. Am I really doing what I think I'm doing? And then, but if it gets to like the 3-month mark, I would say, okay, something I'm currently doing isn't working. And one of those things might be, I've been a little too hard on my body and tried to be a little too aggressive with my rate of loss, and maybe I need a little breather. So I plan breathers in, because like I said, if you don't plan it, it's going to happen anyway. Yeah. And I'd rather have it be on my terms. So I plan those breathers in. But if you stall for more than 3 months, probably time to go back to the drawing board about a few things.
Thank you so much. Next question. How will I know my liver and other organs no longer store excess sugar?
So your liver will always store some sugar as glycogen, right? That's normal. That's good. It's a good thing that happens. You may be meant to say,
Fat.
how will I know when my liver's not storing fat anymore? So your liver will always have a tiny amount of fat in it, and that is also okay and normal. But what you don't want is enough fat so that you classify as fatty liver. The way, if you wanted to formally know and diagnose that, then you would check some blood work and an abdominal ultrasound. And that's how you would know that the fatty liver is no longer a diagnosis that you suffer from. But here's the thing, that many people who don't like going to the doctor, who don't like getting things tested and poked and prodded, your liver will get rid of the fat whether you check the labs and the ultrasound or not. It will literally do it without your knowledge and without your permission. It will just go back to healthy, and you don't necessarily have to verify that with a CAT scan or an ultrasound or lab work. If you want to, you can, but that's not necessary. So that it fixes itself whether you're watching it or not.
Thank you. The next question. This is more just a list of symptoms. So, fatty liver, diabetic, GERD, thyroid issues, low iron. Where do I start? What would you recommend?
Did I read that question?
This question was written by Kim Howerton 10 years ago, so I'm going to let you answer it.
I would say you have to first figure out how to eat, and I wish there was a resource that they could be watching. So first thing I would say is get your food right, and those things will pretty much resolve themselves. And if they don't, then that's a signal that you have to follow up in that specific thing. But like, if you're going to build a house, you got to build the foundation first. It doesn't matter if you chose fancy windows or what color you painted it, because there are all these details we all do differently.
Yeah.
But I think the basic foundation is get rid of the junk, eat whole, real foods that are nutrient dense and nourishing. And we've been talking about the proper human diet, and I think if you do that, for most people, they're going to fix all those problems.
So is there a right or wrong way to start keto? Like, how do I start? You know, is there a right or wrong or most optimal way? Just go to the store, buy food on a list, and just eat
I would
that.
say first, the not right way is to buy food based on the fact that it says keto on the label. That is the wrong way. I would say start with, when I tell people to start keto, I'm like, I'm a big fan of things like tracking and macros and stuff like that, but I don't start that way. It's complicated enough to get started. Meat, eggs, butter,
And patience.
and I'll say, if you don't yet know that you need to cut them out, I don't really usually see any problem with starting with allowing yourself a good deal of vegetables if your body reacts well to them. Because sometimes, coming into this way of eating, it scares you to cut those out, and you like them, and if you like them, eat them. If you don't like them, don't eat them. But that seems pretty basic.
I always tell people, start with Dr. Westman's page 4 because it is extremely simple. It's one page. I love that.
Yeah.
And prioritize your fat and your protein. Keep your carbs under 20. Keep it simple.
Yeah.
Or you could do Dr. Berry's page 4, which is triple B&E if you're really hardcore. But
What would they search for if they didn't?
Dr. Westman page 4 keto, and it's basically a grocery list and a simple breakdown, and he does offer an online course, but honestly you don't need it. Eat the foods on that list, keep your carbs under 20, make sure you're eating good fatty cuts of meat. I mean, really just do not overcomplicate it. And like Kim said, stay away from things that scream keto on the front of them, and turn over, if you're buying a package, turn it over and look at the carb count. Always look at the label.
So that's Dr. Eric Westman. So I just read his book, End Your Carb Confusion with Amy Berger, and it's basically the phase 1 of the Adapt Your Life diet. It is very detailed and gives exactly what you would need. And for, some people deal well with knowing exactly what they should have. Some people don't like to be that restrictive. So it's a good amount of detail, but it also leaves it up to you. Choose choose these things that are on this list. You don't have to eat any of them. You can eat all of them up to the amount specified. So that's a very good place to start.
Autumn, can I say, I've been doing this 6 years now, and I will tell you that what I eat and enjoy and feel satiety with now at 6 years is extremely different than when I started. Because I don't know if I could have started BB&E. I started with fat bombs. I started with some of the other things. I guess you could call it dirty or lazy keto, because that was such an amazing change. I was a grouch for about a week till I switched into nutritional ketosis and then all that. So I would say, rather than saying I can never do that and just never doing it, find what you can do. And it's amazing how I didn't plan on this year I'm going to do this and this year I'm going to do that. It just changed naturally.
And I would also say, don't let perfection get in the way of progress.
Yes.
Like, I had somebody come to me and say, I don't do keto because I have to have a Diet Coke every day. And I was like, eat keto and have a Diet Coke every day then.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of people think if they can't do it perfectly, they shouldn't do it at all. I'm not saying, I'm just choosing that as an example. I'm not criticizing your Diet Coke habit.
But if it keeps you from doing it.
If it keeps you from doing it, then just do everything but that thing and then see if that thing drops away. Mm-hmm. And it probably will. And you're still better off with it than you are with the Diet Coke and the whatever else you're eating. So.
This is another Dr. Westman thing, but we were at an event with him in Atlanta, and they were talking to their people about just this: being consistent is better than being perfect. And Amy showed a graph that was like, these are the people that tried to be perfect, and what it looked like was, out of 30 days, they had 5 perfect days, and the rest of the month, they fell off because they got overwhelmed and fell off because they were trying to be perfect. The people who just tried to be consistent had 20-something good days and just a few bad days. So it's just human nature. If you're trying to be perfect, you are absolutely not going to be perfect. Just try to be consistent and better than you have been.
Yes.
Not better than the person next to you. Be better than you were yesterday, last year, and just keep moving forward.
One day I added up a normal day for me pre-keto, low-carb, proper human diet. I, on average, ate about 500 grams of carbs a day. So to go to Westman page 4 or lazy dirty keto was a 90%, 95% reduction for me. I don't know if I could have done it knowing my addiction. So I'd rather you do it imperfectly than not do it, or be consistent. Yeah.
Thank you. How do you know your fat and protein ratio is right for you?
N=1 experiments.
Yes.
Just like I talked about this morning.
Yeah.
I can't tell you what's right for you, but I can tell you a very, very good place to start is a 1-to-1 fat to protein, meaning 90 grams of fat, 90 grams of protein. It doesn't have to be exact. Don't do that.
Don't freak out.
Right.
Oh my God.
No,
then you might as well just eat that donut.
Right. If you eat 100 grams of protein and your fat macro is 70, guess what? That's fine.
Yeah. It's good.
That's fine. Yep. They just need to be in close proximity to each other and then move from there. But for most people, they find that works for a really long time until they need to switch things up, maybe go up a little in their fat or up a little in their protein.
Yeah, and then also the real mind twister is what you need now might not be what you need next year. So just being open to listening to what your body is telling you, the feedback it's giving you. I always say there are 3 F's: feel, function, and form, right? How do I feel, like, in my head, in my body? How am I functioning? How am I able to do things? And what does my form look like, right? Those are 3 things that you can always consider when you're saying, like, what, because the proof of the pudding is in the tasting, right? Mm-hmm. Which means it's all about the outcome you're getting. It doesn't really matter what you're putting into it if the outcome isn't what you want. So you got to look at the outcome.
How many people in here are just contemplating doing keto or just have started keto just for less than 3 months?
I love that.
One person? Anybody else?
Good for you.
We're so glad you're here.
Yeah.
So good. So here's the thing. Yes, yeah, definitely. But back before I started keto, if you're like, you can get feedback from your body. And your body will tell you, I'd be like, what are you talking about? What? Morse code? What? So when you're eating the standard American diet, your body is so inflamed and so miserable, you can't get any feedback. I use the analogy of an alcoholic who's drinking a gallon of vodka a day. If you give that alcoholic a 12-ounce beer and say, here, drink this, do you feel any different? They'd be like, no, stupid, right? If I sent that alcoholic to rehab for 6 months and then I gave him that 12-ounce beer, would he feel that beer?
Yeah.
100%, right? And so right now it may just sound foreign to you, like, what, my body feedback, how is my body going to talk to me? I don't understand. But once you've reduced the inflammation that I talk about, this being so uninflammatory, once you've lowered your insulin and all your other hormones and moved them back to the right direction, your body will give you definite feedback. And you will immediately be able to recognize, ooh, I shouldn't eat that. How many people can verify that? Definitely.
Within a couple hours.
Look around.
Typically.
Literally, if you eat the wrong vegetable, you can now feel that feedback. Whereas before, when you were eating ding dongs and Cheetos and whatever, you couldn't, your body would have to punch you in the face for you to feel any feedback. But you'll be able to feel that and you'll understand. You'll be like, oh, I get it now. Yeah, okay. But I know that when you first start this, you're like, I don't understand what that means. Does that help?
Thank you. This is a memory test for Dr. Barry and Nisha. Can you share where you went for barbecue and then went shopping for meat in one of your YouTube videos a few months back?
I know.
Yes.
We have a winner.
We ate at Martin's, and then we went to the, what's it called, Bones? Bare Bones Butcher. What was the last part?
I thought that was where it was.
And then we went grocery shopping at the turnip truck. Yeah. Yes, which is right down the road.
Is that when you bought all that?
Highly recommend
unusual
going
meat?
there.
Is that when you bought all that? Yeah.
The turnip truck is great. Make a stop. If you brought a cooler, and if you didn't, and you drove, go buy a cooler and go there. Seriously.
So repeat that again.
Bare Bones Butcher for local meat, and then turnip truck for local other things along with meat. And they're literally like right here.
The restaurant you ate at?
And Martin's Barbecue on Elliston. It's right next to the Parthenon.
Look at that. I was like, I want to see if they actually remember this. So there you go.
I knew she'd remember, yeah.
The oysters are at Urban Grub on 12 South Avenue.
This is amazing right now. I love that.
Where
This
to
woman
eat in
loves her meat.
Nashville.
Exactly. The memory.
Yeah.
Keto, right? The brain, the ketones. Okay, how does inflammation manifest? How do you know it's food related?
That is an excellent
It's
question.
a great question.
Dr. Barry.
Well,
You don't, but you can suspect. If the only thing that has changed in your environment is that you went to Aunt Martha's and had that huge slug of coconut cake and then had some inflammation, then that's probably what it was.
yeah.
Right? But you never know 100%, scientifically that's what this is. But you can see patterns. Human beings we have better pattern recognition than any other mammal, any other animal that I'm aware of. We can recognize patterns, and that's how we can see the Virgin Mary on a piece of toast.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Remember that news story?
Yeah.
Virgin Mary seen on a piece of toast. It's a miracle. No, we're just great at pattern recognition. We can look at clouds. Me and Becky can lay and look at clouds and see elephants and camels. Ain't none of that shit there. It's pattern recognition, right? And so you look for patterns. I ate this happened. Well, did that cause that? Maybe. Next month, when I eat that again and that happens again, that's a pattern.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? That's repetitive. That's a pattern. Now I can say, there's a high likelihood that caused that. And then if you care to repeat it a third time and you get verification, that's a pretty damn strong pattern.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? But you never truly know. But if you eat something that's suspect and you have a skin reaction, a gut reaction, a joint reaction, or a degradation in your overall mental health, mark that down.
Yeah.
If you're doing your journaling like Nisha talks about, and you're like, whoa, I ate this and this happened, I don't know. And then 3 months later, you eat that same thing again and that same thing happens, that's a pattern, my friends.
Yeah.
And that's why we run the planet, is we're supposed to be good at recognizing patterns.
Yeah.
So look for the patterns.
And I will tell you, there's a part, remember he mentioned glycation earlier today, and we were talking about how tricky sugar is. Sugar's tricky because it's sticky. There's this thing called advanced glycation end products. When you have been superglycating sticky stuff throughout your protein, there's an end product that comes out, and it's basically inflammatory cascade that sets off for the joint. There's just so much that's going on. And if you have more to add about advanced AGE, advanced glycation end products, I know enough to be dangerous, but I know this. I used to wake up every morning with a headache so bad my neck would be all pulled back like this. And I think it was just so many years of so much sugar, and all these advanced glycation end products were just causing this systemic inflammation.
I just want to say also, like Dr. Berry said, it needs to be a pattern that you're looking at, not I ate this one thing and this thing happened and now that's not good science. That's just a coincidence, probably.
It's correlation.
Because we hear that a lot. Like this one time I did this and this happened. What does that mean? It's like, I don't know. You don't know either. We got to do this again and see what happens.
I get this a lot in comments on social media. I'm afraid of keto. I started keto this one time at band camp, and the next day the stock market crashed, or I got a gallbladder attack, or I got a bunion, or I got married, or whatever. If something happens one time, that is not a pattern, right? And so you have to remember that. Nisha's exactly right. We get this both ways, like, I went carnivore and something good happened. Well, maybe your diet did that. I went carnivore and I had appendicitis. Well, maybe. But you can only record these things as potential patterns until you actually see a pattern.
This next one doesn't provide a lot of detail, but muscle stiffness and soreness after work, what to do for it. So I don't know if that means there's a lot of strenuous movement during work, or perhaps no movement during work for long periods causing that muscle stiffness and soreness. So just in general, what are some tips for muscle stiffness and soreness?
Well, the first thing I would say is our bodies are not actually designed to be stationary at all moments of the day. And I think a lot of us sit all day long. I personally hate to move at all. I identify as a sloth. In fact, even sitting is a little strenuous for me. I prefer to be reclining most of the time. With, people around me fanning me as well.
Well, and before we get to that was another thing. We've been sitting all day, so everyone, wherever you are, let's just stand up for just a second. Shake it out. Even those of you at home on the live stream, unless you're like driving or doing something, but just roll, shoulder roll, do something,
So to answer that question is, I set a timer.
Feel free to be seated whenever you'd like. Now, you don't have to remain standing, but if you feel it,
I set a timer on my phone every hour to stand up and stretch. And also, this was not the question, but it's been proven that even 2 minutes of walking after eating lowers blood glucose.
Be seated. Feel free to be seated if you'd like.
Oh, they're all riled up. Exactly. I would say if you're stiff after working, unless you're like a heavy machine, like you're a laborer, the answer is probably that you're not moving enough. And set a timer on your phone, move your body, stretch your body, and add a little bit more exercise to your day every day. Hydrate is also important. Anything else?
Many other things could be involved. It could be hormones. It could be lack of activity. It could be overactivity when you've been previously sedentary. Many things could contribute to the asking of that question, the details of which I know not. So we can't get too detailed about a non-detailed question.
Yes, that's be detailed, be specific, but hopefully we were able to give you some tips just overall of basically move more, not eat less, move more, not like that, but actually, the human body was made to move, and so, love your body by moving it. Okay, for Dr. Berry, my husband is an avid weightlifter, but he can't keep his weight up on 1 to 2 meals a day without using protein drinks. Any suggestion to eliminate protein powders?
Eat more meat.
Eat more frequently, more meals.
He might need 3 meals a day if he's working out heavily. At some point, working out becomes an unnatural activity.
Let's ask Robert. Robert, what do
Right?
you do when you're an avid weightlifter? Do you only eat once a day or twice a day if you're losing weight?
So if you're building, you need more,
Yes.
right? And I think just in the diet or weight loss community, like just like Kim says, we are afraid of more. Why would we ever eat more, right? Because
Right.
all that we've ever learned is we have to figure out how to eat less so that we can lose weight, right? But there are certain times in our lives when it is healthy to eat more. And if you're specifically trying to build or lift weights or, build your body, then it's okay to eat
Yeah.
more and perhaps eat more often.
Now let's talk about protein drinks and protein powders. It is very, very common for especially dudes that work out to think that in order for that to have any meaningful effect whatsoever, they're going to have to drink a protein powder, protein shake, amino acid shake, branch chain amino acid. Ah, that's sexy,
Yeah.
right? There is no better protein for building muscle than the protein in meat, period. There is no shake. You can go to GNC, you can get the Mega Mass 2500, you can get Dave Asprey, you can get Joe Weider, it does not matter. None of that is as good for building actual, useful, meaningful muscle than eating meat and eggs. The end. So if you think you've got to have a protein shake, you don't.
So this kind of goes to leading next to that. Can you regain or build muscle just by eating protein? Do you improve all body parts with protein?
Yes, as long as there's adequate healthy fat included.
So you absolutely can gain a little bit, but if you really want any significant muscle gain, you have to tell the muscle you need it to be able
stronger.
to do more
Yeah.
work. Just like, Dr. Berry says, your body isn't stupid. And muscle is extremely metabolically expensive.
Yes.
It requires more calories for your body to have it. And if you don't tell your body you need it, it's going to sell it off, right? And so while it's a 1-2 punch, if you don't have the protein, you're not going to have what you need to build. But if you don't do the building, like if you just have a lot of bricks around, you don't automatically have a house. Right, you got to build the house, so you need them both.
Yeah.
Awesome, thank you. Yes. This question is for Nisha, and I don't know if I have it. It says, is armor or nature
Nature thyroid.
okay, better for Hashimoto's?
They're about the same, right? In the way that they're made.
Nature's currently recalled, but Armor's still available. Also WP, NP, and in Canada, ERFA, ERFA. Those are all desiccated thyroid replacement hormone options that contain T0, T1, T2, T3, and T4, and calcitonin, which is what your thyroid should be making. Whereas Synthroid or levothyroxine is only fake T4.
Yep.
This next question, Roux-en-Y, in parentheses, 1999, which I'm assuming when that procedure was done. Why still dumping syndrome, normal meal size for years now?
Yeah, if you will think back, or you can actually go to the hospital where you had the Roux-en-Y and get a copy of the consent form that you signed. It says very plainly on there that you might have dumping syndrome for the rest of your life.
Mm-hmm.
It says that very clearly. When you sign a consent form to have your gallbladder removed, it says that you may suffer from lifelong diarrhea.
Yep.
Okay? Now, those are rare, but that is possible.
Yeah.
And some people do have that for the rest of their life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you have to think what they actually did. They rerouted around part of the jejunum where a lot of your nutrition and your absorption, and depending on how much your surgeon routed that Roux-en-Y to make this little sort of Y-shaped thing, depending on the length, you may have enough gone that you're not, and that's why some women or men that have that type of procedure end up with nutritional deficiencies that are really challenging because, it's tough. So just do the best you can. I'd say try maybe smaller meals, maybe putting so much in, because you said normal meal size. Try maybe, and I'm going against the OMAD or the twice a day. You may, because you're an N of 1, you may do better with smaller meals paced out a little bit, throughout
Definitely.
the day.
And especially if you've had an aggressive Roux-en-Y.
Yes.
You might need 5, 6, 7 small meals a day. Now, you might try to keep it in a time-restricted 8 hours or something,
But just spread it, yeah.
But you're going to have multiple small meals because Rowan-Wise is a specific surgical procedure, but some surgeons are much more aggressive in how much
Yes.
they take. And that matters.
And that was really long ago, so they hadn't quite figured out the long-term nutritional problems with being extremely aggressive. Now, if they do that, it's typically they leave it longer, more of your small intestines.
Thank you. The last question that I have for each of you is, as you give these speeches and these talks and you meet people in person and you see and you try to give the information you can, what's the one thing you want someone to leave here today, understanding? Or what's the one point you want to drive home?
I want you to understand that it does make sense. When you've got the right information, the right facts, it all makes sense. It does. It's not a roll of the dice. You're not a loser. Your body's not broken. None of that stuff's true. This all makes sense, and this will all work at some speed. It may not be the speed that you'd like, but it's going to work, and it's going to help, and things are going to get better, and it does make sense. That's the key. If you don't understand that, then you're just looking at another fad diet for a minute before you run off to the next thing. But that's what I try to do with the principles is this makes sense. This is it. Stick with this and figure this out, and you will get to where you're trying to go.
I think for me, it's important for everyone to know that you can have food sanity and freedom, and that won't necessarily look like anyone else's experience, and that you get to have it your way. And I guess I just feel like so often we don't know that we're allowed to be in charge of our futures. We just kind of go with the flow or do what the rules say or do what this other person did. And just like Dr. Berry said, you learn how it works and you make it yours. You're not blindly following, you're incorporating this and making it work for you. And I guess that overall, more than anything else, there is a freedom on the other side of the confusion you might be experiencing when you start, trusting that you can follow your journey, and end up an incredibly successful you.
I think what I want all of you to take home with you today is that what we've all said, what Dr. Berry just said, all of these things that we have talked about are simple things, right? They're very simple. But simple doesn't mean easy. But just you guys in this room, you have each other, and that makes it doable. So find you a buddy, a meat buddy, a keto group, a keto coach, a community, and that makes the simple more doable. It still may not be easy every day, but you can do it. Because you can, because she did, and she did, and I did, and Autumn did, and all these people in this room that you look around, you've seen like Betsy up here. Mm-hmm. Betsy is one of my favorite success stories. Find her and talk to her. Yeah. Find these people, make bonds, because these simple, what did you call them? Simple principles, you can break them down with each other and have more success together.
I think for me, I got a mic.
You go, girl.
Clearly, if I can do it, you can do it.
Yeah.
And I want you to know that there's hope and there's healing, and it's never, never too late.
Thank you so much. All right, one more hand for our panelists.
Yay!
All right, and let's give it one big cheer for the PhD Summit 2022.
Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of Keto Life Support. Want more information? Want show notes? Want to suggest a topic? Just head over to ketolifesupport.com. That's where all that kind of thing can go on. By the way, I have a request. If you could go to your podcast host and hit subscribe, we would really, really appreciate it. And what would be even more awesome is if you could write a review. And what would be even more awesome than that is if you could write like a really flattering review. Just asking, you do you. All right. So thanks so much for joining us. I'm thrilled that you're